Kim Jung-ho stands by the fruit display. The shelves glow brightly under the lamps, displaying perfect glossy apples, perfect bunches of grapes, and pyramids of oranges. He looks at them, but doesn't see them. His gaze is unfocused, his thoughts elsewhere, in the familiar world of papers, quiet conversations, and tinted car windows. He rarely goes to regular stores. Usually, his assistants do that. They know what to buy, what kind of tea he prefers, what kind of mineral water. They deliver everything to the office or straight to his home, neatly packaged. His world exists apart from this noise, bright price tags, and bustle. But today, he's expecting a new driver. The old, trusted one suddenly left to visit his sick mother in another city. A new one was sent this morning. He's young and doesn't know his way around yet. Jung-ho gave him a task: find a specific electronics store on the other side of the district just to test his navigation. He got out at the nearest supermarket. "Wait here," he said. The driver nodded, trying to look as serious and reliable as possible. Jung-ho went inside to while away the time. The air inside smelled of slightly sweetened freshness, a mixture of bread, clean floors, and the chill of open refrigerators. Quiet, impersonal music played. He didn't pick up his basket. He simply walked slowly along the aisles, examining the shelves without interest. He was wearing his usual dark coat, expensive but not flashy. It made him stand out among the people in simple jackets and sweaters. He felt the discrepancy, but it didn't bother him. He was simply an island of silence in the stream of everyday life. He watched. A young couple argued over the choice of cheese. An older man carefully sorted through the loaves of bread. A girl pulled her mother toward the candy shelf. He saw all this as a scene from someone else's life, which flowed according to its own simple and understandable laws: choose, pay, leave. In his world, the laws were different, more complex, with different consequences. He approached the fruit display and paused, pretending to examine the kiwis. In reality, he was looking into the glass display case, at his own reflection, the calm, closed face of a man accustomed to the space around him, adjusting itself. Here, among these brightly colored packages and hurrying people, for the first time in a long time, he simply waits. And this waiting, this pause, makes him not the master of the situation, but just another man in the crowd. For a few minutes, Kim Jung-ho, whose name evokes respect and quiet fear in certain circles, becomes just a man at the fruit display, to whom anyone might approach and ask, "Are these tangerines sweet?" His thoughts are interrupted by movement at one of the registers. Not a loud commotion, but movement, a wave of impatience running through the line. Jung-ho turns his head. Several people have gathered at the third register. The cashier, a tired-looking woman, is saying something, looking straight ahead, and in front of her is a woman. A woman holds a small child. The baby, wrapped in a worn but clean blanket, lies quiet on her shoulder, only a tangle of dark curls visible. The woman herself is fussily rummaging through a large bag. She places a few modest items on the conveyor belt: a packet of the cheapest cereal, a jar of pureed food, a package of pasta, a small bottle of milk. Her movements are abrupt, nervous. She places the bag on the conveyor belt to try to find her wallet with both hands, supporting the child with her elbow. Confusion is etched on her face. This isn't just forgetfulness. This is panic, just beginning to rise from the bottom, but already clouding her vision. She finds an old, worn wallet and quickly opens it. Her fingers, long and graceful, but with chipped polish, feverishly sort through cards and a few bills. She whispers something to herself, perhaps counting. The cashier has already scanned her modest purchases, the total flashing on the display. The line behind her, two people with overflowing carts and another elderly woman with a basket, is frozen in quiet but palpable anticipation. Everyone stares at her back, bent under the weight of her child and anxiety. The woman's name is Amelia, and now her entire world has narrowed to the numbers on the small screen of the cash register and the contents of her wallet. She meticulously calculated every penny last night, sitting at the kitchen table in the dim light. But she forgot about diapers. She had to buy a small package, which ate into the very reserve that was supposed to cover a possible error. Now the number on the display is a wall. The first card. She swipes it. A long silence, and then the machine's quiet, polite refusal. Insufficient funds. Her cheeks begin to burn. She looks apologetically at the cashier, who only shrugs. Try another one. The second card, a credit card, is almost maxed out. Amelia prays silently, but the screen returns an error again. Card declined. The very word takes her breath away. Her shoulders tense. The child in her arms, her little son named Leo, feels her mother's tension. He whimpers softly, his face buried in the fabric of her sweater. That soft sound, so full of helplessness, cuts Amelia more sharply than any look. She tries to soothe him, rocking him, but her own hands are shaking. She looks at her purse again. A few crumpled bills. They won't even come close. She can ask the cashier to remove something. But what? Pasta? Milk? Baby food? Every item in that pitiful pile on the conveyor belt is a necessity. This isn't food. It's a 2-day survival plan. She stands there, head bowed, and understands what is about to happen. She will have to look up, say, I can't, ask to put it all aside. The cashier will call security or a manager to remove the item from the conveyor belt. People in line will mutter, shake their heads, look at her with irritation and disdain. And then she will walk out into the street empty-handed, with a hungry child, and she will have to go home, to an empty refrigerator, and think about what to do next. This shame, burning and all-consuming, is already here. It constricts her throat. She can't even apologize. The words get stuck. There is a treacherous moisture in her eyes. She blinks desperately, looking at the bright stickers on the register, at the gum and batteries. Anything not to cry here, in front of everyone. She is a grown woman, a mother, and she can't buy food for her child. This is the worst failure of her life. And it unfolds here, before the eyes of indifferent or irritated people, under the indifferent light of fluorescent lamps. The silence behind Amelia grows thick and heavy. It weighs on her more than any words. First, just a sigh. Deep, expressive, from a man with a cart filled with cans of beer and processed foods. The sound speaks louder than words. These problems again. Then a click. An older woman in a practical raincoat glances at her watch. She glances at it more than once. She twists her wrist to make the numbers more visible, and her lips press together tightly. This gesture is the universal language of impatience, and it echoes in other people. The cashier, unable to bear the pause, says dryly, "Are you going to pay, or should I take it away?" Her voice, tired and devoid of any empathy, cuts to the quick. It's not a question, it's an ultimatum. And then a voice comes from behind. Sharp, male, filled with genuine irritation at the forced delay. "How much longer? Everyone's busy. If you can't pay, step aside." The words hang in the air, sharp and undeniable. They send a signal to others. Another person, standing one seat away from the speaker, mutters under their breath, but loud enough to be heard. And they drag the children along with them. They just torture them. The elderly woman with the basket shakes her head, her gaze sliding over Amelia and her child with a mixture of regret and annoyance. She may understand, but her own time, her schedule, is more important right now. The line turns into a chorus of silent but clear condemnation. No one shouts or starts a scene. They sigh, shake their heads, shift their weight, look anywhere but at Amelia's face, but their collective energy is one solid, unwavering pressure. They are normal people who plan their day, who have money for their full carts, who just want to show up, buy, and go. And she is a nuisance. A glitch in the system, an awkward, pathetic delay that disrupts the normal rhythm of their lives. They don't see desperation. They see delays. They don't see a mother trying to feed her child. They see a woman who can't solve a simple everyday problem and is wasting precious minutes. The words "step aside" seem to physically jolt Amelia. Her whole body trembles. The baby in her arm, sensing the sudden movement, begins to whine louder, more restlessly. It's not a cry, but a plaintive, frightened squeal that cuts into the silence of the checkout area more sharply than any scream. Amelia tries to say something. She lifts her head, her lips trembling. I'm sorry. She croaks out a hoarse whisper, but the words stick in her throat, blocked by a lump of shame and helplessness. She wants to explain. But what is there to explain? That she doesn't have the money? That's obvious to everyone. That she miscalculated? Who cares? Her apologies are useless. They don't make the line move any faster. She feels the heat from her cheeks spreading throughout her body. She feels stuffy, her temples pounding. She's ready to cry. She desperately needs these ingredients. This modest packet of pasta, this milk, this mashed potatoes. This is the plan. The only clear, simple plan. Feed Leo, put him to bed well-fed, and maybe have some tea and bread for herself. And this plan is crumbling to dust right before her eyes, accompanied by sighs and reproaches. She feels dozens of disapproving glances on her. They seem to burn through her skin. She feels every glance, cold, irritated, impatient, disgusted. She is a failed creature on display for all to see, a bad mother, incapable of even the most basic things. She wants to curl up in a ball, shield the child from view, and disappear. But she stands there, paralyzed, clutching to her chest the only thing she has worth, her crying son, whom she can't even feed. Jong-ho watches this scene from beginning to end. He doesn't move from his spot by the fruit display, but his absent gaze is completely focused. He sees more than just the incident at the checkout. He sees details, the panic flickering in the woman's dark eyes as she frantically shuffled the cards, the helplessness in her attempt to calm the child, whose quiet sobs have now turned into open cries. And most importantly, He sees the complete, icy indifference of the line. This indifference strikes him as ordinary. No one is intentionally malicious. They simply want the nuisance to go away. Their world is their carts, their lists, their time. Her drama is an annoying noise to them. Something inside Jong Ho shifts, not abruptly, but quietly, like a gear that hasn't been used in a long time. He's used to different conflicts. Ones where the stakes are power, territory, money, where tensions are resolved not with glances and sighs, but by other harsh methods, where there are rules, albeit their own, crooked but understandable. There are no such scenes of public, quiet human disintegration. There is strength, weakness, calculation, but rarely that naked, unadulterated shame of not being able to buy food for your child. This quiet drama seems monstrously unfair to him, not in a global sense, but in a specific, momentary sense. One drowns before the eyes of a crowd, and the crowd is only irritated by his splashing. In his world, if you see weakness, you either press for your own gain or pass bow if it's not your game. Help without ulterior motive is a rare, almost abstract concept. But here, under the bright lights of the supermarket, he sees something so simple and so wrong that it provokes an almost instinctive reaction in him. It's not a chivalrous impulse. It's more a disagreement with a worldview where such things can happen so routinely, where one can witness someone else's small apocalypse and simply look at the clock. His own anticipation, his pause, suddenly became filled with meaning. He was here for a reason. He was here to see this. His face, always so inscrutable, changes slightly. His eyebrows draw together slightly. His gaze, which had been distant, becomes sharp, analytical. He's no longer a mere observer. He's already assessing the situation, not as a threat or an opportunity, but as a problem that demands an immediate and direct solution. Right now, the decision came to him instantly, without any internal debate. It wasn't a sentimental outburst, but rather a cold, almost instinctive conclusion. This situation was unacceptable and had to be corrected, and he was the only one who saw it and who could do it right now. The wait was over. His new driver, his routes, his errands, all of it faded into the background, becoming an unimportant detail. He steps away from the fruit display. His movements are calm and confident. There's no fuss, no apparent rush, but an undeniable sense of purpose. He doesn't walk, but rather moves, like a ship changing course. Smoothly, yet inexorably. People in the aisle, without even realizing it, part slightly to make way for him. It's not out of fear. They don't know that. It's because of the aura he inadvertently exudes, the aura of a man who knows where he's going and what he'll do. His dark coat seems out of place among the bright shelves of chips and cookies, but now it looks not just expensive, but functional, like a uniform for action. He passes the soda shelves and the yogurt display. His gaze no longer glides over the merchandise. He's fixated on the spot at the third register, the woman's hunched back, and the cashier's figure, who's already making a move to call someone over. The noise of the store, the music, the hubbub of voices, all of that now recedes. There's only the goal, and he's almost there. Jong-ho stops next to Amelia. He doesn't stand right next to her, maintaining a respectful distance, but his presence is palpable, like a shadow cast over her. He's a head taller than her, and his figure blocks some of the blinding light from the lamps, causing her to blink for a moment. He doesn't look at the cashier or at the impatient line. His attention is completely focused on the woman and her crying child. He leans in just slightly to avoid speaking loudly, and his voice is quiet, low, almost confidential. There's not a hint of the irritation that was present in the others' voices. There's a calm, neutral politeness about him that seems unusual in this tense atmosphere. "Excuse me," he says, and the word sounds like the first sincere apology for this whole situation. "Please, step aside for a minute." The phrase is simple, clear, non-threatening, but also without lengthy explanations. It's not a request that can be easily rejected. It's a polite but firm instruction. He doesn't ask, "Can I talk to you?" or say, "I need to get you out of here." He simply suggests she step out of this vicious circle at the checkout, out of the crossfire of stairs, into a more private space. His tone leaves no doubt that it needs to be done now, and that he will wait for her to do it. Amelia slowly turns her head toward him, as if through water. Her eyes, filled with tears of despair, are now filled with a new, sharp emotion, fear. She looks at him and grows cold inside. He's tall, very tall and broad-shouldered. His face is serious, high cheekboned, with a direct, unwavering gaze. There's not a hint of a smile, or the sympathy she might subconsciously be looking for. His face is a mask of imperturbability and hidden strength. And his coat, it's expensive. She doesn't know the brands, but she sees the quality of the fabric, the perfect cut that fits him like a glove. He doesn't look like a shopper, not like just another person in line. A thought strikes her like lightning. Security, or a manager, the most important manager, the one they call when problem customers appear at the checkout, the one who throws them out. Her worst fears materialize right before her in this silent, imposing man. He hasn't come to help, but to complete the process of public humiliation. Now he will say something formal, cold, ask her to leave the room, and perhaps even accompany her to the exit to make sure she doesn't return. Her heart, already pounding with shame, now races wildly, thumping in her temples, in her throat, drowning out even Leo's cries. The blood drains from her face, leaving a feeling of icy numbness. Her arms, holding the child, weaken. She feels her knees tremble. Her entire, already shaky world is crumbling completely. First financial ruin now, public exile under the watchful eye of this imperturbable giant. She was ready to resign herself to leaving, head down, but being escorted out, that's a new level of shame. She can't say anything, can't object. She just unconsciously, protectively, hugs her son even tighter, as if trying to shield him from at least that gaze. She nods, almost imperceptibly. Her eyes are full of animal fear and submission. She steps away from the conveyor belt, leaving her pitiful purchases there, and takes a step, then another, away from the checkout, toward a clearer space, toward the shelves of household chemicals. She walks blindly, guided by the quiet command in his voice and the chilling horror in her own soul. She walks toward what she considers her final defeat. She walks away from the line with him, head down. Every step is labored, as if she's sinking into the floor. Her gaze is fixed on the beautiful but soulless linoleum beneath her feet. All she sees are her worn-out shoes and his expensive polished shoes walking next to her. The contrast screams of dissipation. Leo's cries are now deafeningly loud in her ears, mingling with the roar of her blood. She squeezes him so tightly that he begins to struggle, dissatisfied. They stop at a secluded shelf of cleaning products. The place smells of lemon and chemical freshness, a sharp contrast to the sweet smell of the bakery area. She freezes, her eyes downcast, expecting a blow. She expects an official, icy tone, a brief lecture on store rules, a demand to leave. She braces herself for humiliation, her shoulders hunched, her back bent under an invisible weight. It feels like an eternity. Then the man speaks, and his words aren't what she expected. They don't come from above. They sound smooth, quiet, calm, almost warm, and clearly not for strangers' ears. "I apologize for disturbing you at such a difficult time." Amelia slowly, with great distrust, looks up at him. She searches his face, searching for mockery, lies, hidden cruelty, but she finds only seriousness and a strange, awkward regret. His gaze doesn't strike, doesn't condemn. It simply states a fact. This is a difficult moment, and he apologizes. He apologizes to her, to the one whom, a second ago, everyone, including herself, considered to be to blame for the awkward delay. These words knock the wind out from under her more effectively than any threat. They don't fit the scenario of humiliation. They disrupt her entire train of thought. She freezes, her mouth half open, unable to respond. Leo, sensing his mother's grip loosening, also falls silent, burying his tear-slick face in her neck and looking at the stranger with wide, curious eyes. Amelia looks at him, confused. Her brain, sluggish with stress, refuses to process the information. She waits for him to continue, waits for the but you'll have to leave. But next time, be sure to count your money. But I have to warn you. But the sequel that sounds erases all possible buts in one fell swoop. Jung-ho continues, his voice still quiet and clear, without pathos, as if he were offering her not salvation, but simply a practical solution to a small logistical problem. "I want to help you." He pauses briefly, letting the words sink in. "Please take the big cart." Amelia glances involuntarily at the rows of metal carts by the entrance. A large one. Not a basket, a trolley. "Collect everything you need." He makes another clarification, which seems to her like a gateway to some other parallel reality, and things that you can't afford on ordinary days. He sees a wild disbelief, almost panic, flicker in her eyes, and he finishes his sentence, removing the main, only question that has been tormenting her. "Don't think about money. I'll pay." He says the last three words with particular weight, but without boasting, simply as a fact. As a technical detail she can cross off her list of problems. The world around Amelia freezes. The sounds of the store, the hum, the music, the voices, dissolve into a distant murmur. All she hears are these words, spinning around in her head, unable to find a place. "A big cart, everything you need, anything you can't afford. I'll pay for it." This offer is so enormous, so incredible, so beyond her experience, that her mind refuses to believe it. She searches for a catch, desperately hoping to find one, because a world where such a thing is possible without a catch is more terrifying to her than a world where she's being thrown out of the store. In her life, everything comes at a price, and often the price is higher than the money. She looks at this strange, serious man and sees not a guardian angel, but a new, incomprehensible, and therefore frightening mystery. Amelia is silent. The stranger's words hang in the air between them, heavy and unreal, like gold bars dropped to the pavement. Her mind, hardened by bitter experience, frantically searches for a catch. It scans every detail. His face, too calm. His clothes, too expensive. The very factity of his appearance, too timely. In her world, nothing comes for free. Kindness always has a price, and often this price is hidden until the last moment. Why would a stranger do this? What does he want in return? Her thoughts race. Is this some kind of elaborate prank? Is she being filmed with a hidden camera? Will he take her to a corner, take the child, or demand something terrible? Is this a way to entice her, to appear benevolent, and then present her with a bill she can't pay? Her arms, already tired, instinctively clutch the sleeping Leo tighter. The baby, disturbed, groans in his sleep. This movement isn't just a maternal gesture, it's a barricade. The child becomes both a shield and the most valuable hostage in this incomprehensible situation. She's ready to reject everything, even this incredible generosity, if only to protect him from possible danger. She looks at Jung-ho, not with gratitude, but with animalistic caution, the eyes of a cornered animal that has been slipped a tasty morsel right into its cage. The silence stretches. He waits. His patience seems boundless, which makes her even more uneasy. A normal person in his place would insist, rush her, maybe even take offense at her mistrust. But this man simply stands there, giving her time to digest the unbelievable. And there's something in this silent anticipation that finally draws a question from her. Not agreement, not joy. A question squeezed from the very depths of paralyzing fear and mistrust. Why, is all she can say. Her voice trembles, breaking into a hoarse whisper. That single word contains all her experience, all her pain, all the caution of a poor person who has been beaten many times by life under the guise of help. It sounds not curious, but challenging. Name your price. Tell me what you want. Show me where the trap lies. She's prepared for the worst. Prepared for him to say, now I'm asking you for a ride somewhere, or I need a small favor. Her body is tense to the limit, ready to turn and run at any moment, forgetting about food and shame, saving only herself and the child. Jong-ho looks at her. He sees the silent terror in her eyes, the defensiveness, and he understands. He understands not intellectually, but with some deep feeling. He sees not ingratitude, but a deep, ingrained trauma. He sees a person whom the world has taught to distrust even sunlight if it comes free. And then Jong-ho does something almost impossible for himself. The corners of his lips lift slightly. He tries to smile. It's awkward, unnatural, and the smile doesn't reach his eyes, which remain serious. But the very fact of this attempt, this small effort to soften his stony face, speaks volumes. It's not a calculated smile meant to win people over. It's more like a human grimace, a gesture that means, calm down. I'm not your enemy. I was just a witness today, he says, his voice softening slightly. It's no problem for me. Please, let's not waste any time. There's no pathos in these simple words, no desire to be a hero. It's simply a statement of fact. He saw it, he has the opportunity to help, and he's doing it. No ulterior motives, no price. Just an action like flipping a switch. Let's not waste to me sounds almost businesslike, stripping the situation of its sentimentality and translating it into a practical matter, as if the two of them were simply solving a small logistical problem. And then something inside Amelia breaks. The stone shell of fear and mistrust with which she's surrounded herself cracks. The very same shell through which only despair could once seep now lets in something else. A huge, crushing relief. It rises in her throat like a hot lump, squeezing her chest. She tries to swallow, but can't. Her lips tremble more and more, and then the first tear slowly rolls down her cheek, leaving a clear trace on her tired skin. Not from pain or shame, from the fact that her defenses have finally fallen, from the fact that perhaps miracles don't happen, but simple human help does. A second follows. They flow silently, despite all her efforts. She doesn't sob. She simply cries quietly, almost soundlessly, looking at this strange man who looks at her tears without embarrassment, without irritation, simply accepting them as part of the process. Thank you! A hoarse, stifled whisper escapes her. It's a word, so small and incapable of expressing the storm inside, but it's the first, and it's real. In her tear-stained eyes, something other than fear finally appears, a vague, uncertain, almost frightened hope. Jong-ho nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly, at the words, thank you. The deed was done. The emotions were taken into account, but it was time to act. He saw that Amelia was still standing there, as if glued to the spot, holding the child, as if expecting this all to be a dream. She needed a clear, understandable next step. Without a word, he turns and heads toward the row of carts at the entrance. His movements are still measured and confident. He selects not just a large cart, but the largest one, with a deep metal base and a spacious top compartment. It creaks as it moves out from the line of others. He rolls it back toward Amelia, the loud thud of wheels on the floor, marking the rhythm that brings them back to the reality of the store. As he approaches, he notices her old plastic shopping basket sitting on the floor next to her. It contains those same groceries, forgotten in the chaos: a box of pasta, baby food, milk, diapers, a symbol of her failure. Jung-ho bends down and takes the basket by the handle. He doesn't look at the contents with pity or disgust. For him, they are simply the starting point. He carefully places the basket deep in the large, empty cart. The empty space around the small basket seems almost mockingly enormous. This simple gesture, translating her modest, desperate purchases into a new, spacious context, proves more eloquent than any words. Jung-ho releases the handle, symbolically handing her control. He takes a small step back, giving her space. He's not going to lead her by the hand or dictate what to take. It should be her choice. His role is to enable it. "Please begin," he says, his voice returning to its neutral, businesslike tone. "I'll follow you." His entire approach is encapsulated in this short phrase. "Go ahead," gives her the initiative. "Please" maintains politeness. "I'll follow you" alleviates the feeling of being watched, like a suspect, but also makes it clear that he's there, that he's participating, that this isn't anonymous generosity left to its own devices. He'll follow behind, like a shadow, like a guarantor, like a simple companion on this incredible journey through the store. He won't stand to the side and comment. He won't rush. He'll simply be there, creating an invisible shield with his presence from any curious or judgmental glances that might yet be encountered. Amelia looks at the cart handle, then at him. Slowly, as if in a dream, she lets go of the child with one hand to grasp the cold metal. Touching it feels like a shock. It's a brush with the reality of a new, incomprehensible order of things. At first, she doesn't move. She simply stands, clutching the cart with one hand and cradling Leo with the other. She stares at the endless rows of shelves that a moment ago were simply a precious, inaccessible backdrop. Now they're open, and this openness carries its own new, paralyzing complexity. Where to begin when you can take everything? Her feet, as if of their own accord, head where she always goes, along the well-worn path of need, towards the baby food section. She stops in front of the familiar jars. Her hand reaches for the cheapest one, the one she always takes, but her fingers freeze a centimeter from the glass. She casts a quick, almost furtive glance over her shoulder. He stands a few steps away, his hands folded behind his back, looking off to the side, giving her complete privacy. He's not watching. She slowly lowers her hand and takes not the cheap one, but the one next to it, a more expensive one, with pieces of fruit and cereal, which she always avoided, sparing money. She puts one jar in the cart. The sound of glass on metal seems deafeningly loud to her. Then a second, then a third. She acts slowly, timidly, as if committing a crime. Then she rolls the cart over to the cereal shelves. Again, the familiar motion toward the economy pack. And again, a pause. She picks up the brightly colored box of honey and nuts that Leo always eyed with interest in the ads. She places it on top of the jars. She moves on, along her familiar route, but with a new, strange freedom. She approaches the dairy display. Cold air hits her face. Her hand habitually reaches for a small bottle of the cheapest milk, but she stops, looking at the rows of beautiful packaging, the milk with increased calcium content, the children's yogurts in bright cups, the curds with fruit fillings. She freezes before this abundance, and her eyes fill with tears again, but this time from the overload of possibilities. She has lived for so long in a world of severe restrictions that the very possibility of choice, real and not theoretical, is almost an impossible task for her. She stands in front of the open refrigerator door, and cold steam envelops her, but she cannot take a single step forward, afraid that the door will slam shut and everything will turn out to be a dream. Amelia walks away from the dairy display without buying anything. A cold mind, drowning out her emotions, dictates that she move on down the list. She rolls the cart to the meat section. A unique order reigns here. Neat rows of vacuum-sealed products, under a dim light that emphasizes the freshness. The air smells cold and clean. Her eyes scan the shelves. They stop at a neatly packaged beef tenderloin. The meat looks perfect, a uniform pink color, slight marbling. On the price tag are numbers that take her breath away, even now, when money is no object. That amount is her grocery budget for several days. The thought pops up automatically, like a conditioned reflex. Her hand involuntarily reaches for the packaging, her fingers almost touching the cold plastic wrap, but then she pulls it away, as if she's been burned. Instead, she turns her head, and her gaze finds what his inner accountant is searching for: long, spiral-shaped sausages from the lowest price range. She can't afford the luxury of good meat, even if someone else is paying for it. It would be a betrayal of all those years of counting every penny. It would be like a favor too big to accept. Sausages are safe. Sausages are her reality. She quickly moves away from the meat counter, sensing an invisible gaze on her from behind. She doesn't turn around, but her cheeks burn. She imagines he's probably watching and thinking, "What a fool! They gave her carte blanche, and she's taking cheap stuff." She tries to drown out this inner voice as she heads for the bread. Zhang Ho, following her at a respectful distance, witnessed this small drama at the meat counter. He saw her hand reach for one thing and grab another. He saw her shoulders clench after this choice. He didn't smile or get angry. He simply understood. He understood that the inertia of poverty was stronger than one generous offer, that her internal limiter was still turned on full blast. As they passed the bread section, she picked up the simplest loaf and turned into the next aisle. He closed the distance by half a step, not to frighten her, but to ensure his words were clearly audible, but still only to her. "I asked you to," he says, and his voice doesn't sound reproachful, but rather like a reminder of the agreement, like a project partner. "Take what you want." He pauses briefly, letting these words sink in. Then he adds the key, liberating phrase, delivering it with a special, gentle firmness. "Don't look at the prices. Money is not an issue." He doesn't say, "Don't worry about money." That would sound like abstract reassurance. He says concretely, "Don't look at prices." He gives clear instructions on how to turn off that inner limiter. And then he states a fact that's absolutely real to him, but still seems like a fairy tale to her. Money isn't a problem. Coming from him, it's not bragging, but a simple statement of the problem, as if he were saying, time isn't a problem, or distance isn't a problem. It's a technical detail that can be eliminated from the equation. Amelia freezes, holding a can of baked beans. His words reach her not as a sound, but as a vibration that shakes some inner wall. She slowly turns her head and looks at him. He stands there, calm and unperturbed, his gaze saying, "I'm serious. This isn't a courtesy, it's a rule." And at that moment, something finally breaks. Caution, mistrust, the habit of self-restraint. None of it disappears instantly, but recedes, giving way to something new. Opportunity. A real, tangible opportunity that is being given to her. Without thinking ahead, without demanding anything in return, simply given. She nods, not with words, but with her whole being. The nod is short and sharp, as if she's agreeing with herself. She returns the can of beans to the shelf. Then she turns the cart around and heads back to the meat section. Her steps are a little faster now, a little more confident. She doesn't glance at the price tag on the tenderloin. She simply picks up that same package of perfect meat and places it in the cart. The plastic is cold and slippery in her hand. She places it carefully, respectfully. Then her path leads to the fruit, to those same glossy apples and oranges. He stood in front of the display case. She picks up a bag of tangerines, then a couple of pomegranates, which Leo had never tried. Then she returns to the dairy section, which she had previously been unable to navigate. She picks up not just one small bottle, but a large carton of good milk, then several jars of yogurt with little animals on the lids, which always made her son smile. Then some cottage cheese. Her movements are no longer timid jabs. They become fluid. She doesn't pounce yet, not grabbing everything in sight. But each of her choices is now not a calculation of scarcity, but a quiet, almost disbelieving embodiment of desire. What if I take this? And this? Doubts melt like spring ice, giving way to the cautious but genuine flow of life. The routine of choosing gradually draws Amelia in. After her first cautious steps into a world of abundance, her movements become increasingly confident. The cart ceases to be a frightening void and begins to fill with meaning. She no longer bypasses entire sections, thinking, "This isn't for us." Now she slows down, examines, reflects. She puts in not just any pasta, but durum wheat pasta and a glass jar of real Italian sauce. Next to the meat, a package of chicken breast and dry-cured sausage for sandwiches appears. Her hand habitually reaches for the cheap tea bags, but stops. She looks at the neat tins and cardboard boxes with fragrant names. She selects a package of good loose-leaf tea with bergamot, the scent of which she remembers from childhood, from her grandmother's house. Next to it, she places a bar of dark chocolate with almonds, not to satisfy hunger, but simply because she wanted it. And, passing by the confectionery department, she, without a shadow of a doubt, takes from the shelf a large, brightly colored bag of lollipops and chocolate candies. This is festive, that same small miracle that doesn't fit into the survival budget. The cart is now full to the brim. Products are piled high, healthy and tasty, necessary, and simply desirable. This is no longer just a set of provisions. This is a picture of a new, well-fed, almost prosperous life, assembled piece by piece in 20 minutes. Amelia looks at her filled brainchild and is overcome by a strange feeling, a mixture of delight and guilt. She did it. She allowed herself to. Jung-ho, who had been watching this transformation from a distance, finally moves closer when he sees the cart can no longer accommodate them. He simply points his chin toward the empty checkout counter, the very one where it all began, but now it's empty. The line that had been complaining and sighing has long since dispersed, taking its irritation with it to other parts of the city. The cashier has changed. In the tired woman's place, now sits a young man in glasses, indifferently flipping through a magazine. Amelia rolls the heavy, unwieldy cart toward the conveyor belt. A wheel gets slightly stuck, and she strains to free it. This familiar, everyday sound brings her back to reality. A reality in which the most terrifying thing is about to happen. The final bill. She begins unloading groceries onto the conveyor belt. Each can, each package, now seems impossibly bulky and expensive. She tries to stack them carefully, but the groceries pile up, blocking the conveyor belt. Apples try to roll away, and she catches them. She feels that awkwardness return, the heat in her cheeks. Now it's not the shame of poverty, but the shame of excess bought with someone else's money. She glances quickly at Jung-ho. He stands to the side, his hands hidden in his coat pockets, his face impassive. He doesn't help unload, doesn't comment on the mountain of groceries. He simply waits. The cashier perks up. He starts scanning the items. Each beep from the scanner echoes loudly in Amelia's ears. She can't tear her eyes away from the small screen where the prices light up. The numbers jump, add up, and grow at an alarming rate. 10, 20, 50. The sum has long since surpassed everything she's ever spent on groceries at one time, and it keeps growing. She wants to scream, "Stop!" and snatch the most expensive thing from the pile, the meat, the tea, the chocolate. But she freezes. Paralyzed, she watches the cashier scan a chocolate bar, and another significant amount appears on the display. Amelia instinctively squeezes Leo's hand, who's dozing peacefully, on her shoulder. She feels like a fraud, taking advantage of a stranger's kindness, entering too much. She's ready to apologize, to take half back, and then Jung-ho takes a simple step forward. He doesn't look at the total. He doesn't wince. He doesn't make a sound. He simply takes a thin, dark leather wallet from his inside coat pocket. With a quick, practiced movement, he extracts a card. Not a credit card with a bright logo, but a simple, matte gray metal one, without unnecessary details. The cashier announces the total. The figure sounds like a death sentence to Amelia, like an incredible, astronomical figure. Jung-ho simply hands over his card. He doesn't even look at the terminal. His gaze is off to the side, as if he's paying for a subway fare, a routine, insignificant act. The cashier takes the card and swipes it. A second passes, then another. Amelia holds her breath, subconsciously expecting a refusal, an error, something that will reset everything and prove it was all a dream. But the terminal emits a short, approving beep. The payment is processed. Instantly. No questions asked. No delays. The cashier hands back the card. Jung-ho takes it with the same calm gesture and places it back in his wallet without looking. The entire process took less than 10 seconds. The enormous sum, which had been a wall to Amelia, was just a ripple on the water for him, unnoticed. She exhales slowly, feeling the tension that had been building since his offer begin to dissipate, giving way to a new, unfamiliar feeling, a relieved weightlessness. The sound of the terminal's approving beep wasn't just a sound. It was a click that shifted Amelia's world into another state. She stood there, holding her breath, and when Jung-ho put his card away and the cashier began fussing, bagging groceries, she finally allowed herself to exhale. A long, deep, slightly trembling exhalation that emptied her lungs of all the air, poisoned by fear, shame, and the incredible tension of the last hour. A weight was lifted, not metaphorically, but quite literally. The mountain of anxiety that had been pressing on her chest at the checkout crumbled to dust. Her shoulders, constantly hunched from the habitual expectation of the worst, involuntarily straightened. She felt a strange lightness, almost dizziness. Leo stretched in her arm and grunted, and this familiar sound no longer caused panic in her, but only a gentle smile. She had food now, not just a box of pasta and a jar of pureed potatoes. Lots of food, a whole world, packed into several heavy plastic bags. She watched the cashier fill them with her choice. Meat, fruit, cheese, tea. Each item was proof. Proof that the nightmare was over, that her child would be fed. Not today, not tomorrow, but for several days, even a week. Plans were already forming in her head. What to cook first? How to cook semolina porridge with good milk, how to let Leo try a pomegranate. These were simple, everyday thoughts, but they were filled with a warmth and peace she hadn't known in a long time. Shame receded, dissolving in this powerful, all-consuming feeling of relief. She was saved. In the most literal, physical sense of the word, Jong-ho wordlessly picked up the heaviest bags. He didn't offer, didn't ask, he simply did it, as if it were a matter of course. Amelia, still slightly shocked by the situation, grabbed the remaining lighter ones, and they headed for the exit. The automatic glass doors slid open before them, and they were greeted by the cool air of the street, a sharp contrast to the warm, fragrant atmosphere of the store. They took a few steps along the asphalt, and then reality, new but still unfathomable, hit Amelia with renewed vigor. She stopped and turned to him cautiously, almost timidly. He stopped too, waiting patiently. "I still don't understand," she began, her voice quiet, filled with genuine confusion. She looked not at the bags in his hands, but straight into his face, trying to solve this biggest mystery of the day. "Why do you need this?" The question hung in the air. It wasn't a challenge, not a suspicion, as before. It was a need within her soul, one that couldn't accept such a gift without explanation, without fitting it into some kind of comprehensible logic. In her world, everything had cause and effect, price and calculation, but this act defied all the rules. It was too pure, too vast to be simply a good deed. She needed to hear something, so that this bridge between his reality and hers would cease to be a haze and become something tangible. Jong-ho didn't answer right away. He set the bags down, resting his hands, but his gaze wasn't focused on her. He was looking at Leo. The little boy had finally awakened from the fresh air, and now, perched on his mother's arm, was examining the unfamiliar man with great, earnest curiosity. His large, dark eyes were wide open, revealing neither fear nor tears, only pure, genuine wonder at the vast and incomprehensible world. It was this childish face that Jong-ho was looking at when he finally spoke. His voice was as calm as before, but there was a subtle, barely perceptible note of something in it that was neither indifference nor sentimentality. It was a statement of a simple fact, seen from an unexpected angle. "There are moments in life," he began, choosing his words with unusual care, "when you just need to help. Amelia now," he added, "no reason." And finally, his gaze slid back to the child, and then returned to her, completing his thought. "Yours today is one of those." This wasn't a philosophical treatise on kindness. It wasn't an excuse. It was an extremely simple explanation, yet it contained an entire universe within itself. He didn't say, "I feel sorry for you," or, "I'm rich and can afford it." He said, "You need to help," as if he saw a fallen branch in the road and removed it because it was in the way. Her despair, her shame, her helplessness, all of this was that very branch in his path that particular day, and he removed it. There was not a drop of pathos in this answer, which made it the only possible one, capable of being accepted by her tormented soul. This wasn't charity, it was a technical necessity. And in this simplicity lay a bottomless depth that finally allowed Amelia to stop looking for hidden motives and simply accept what had happened as a rare, unthinkable, but true gift of fate. He didn't wait for her reaction to his answer. He simply picked up the bags again, and they moved on. Amelia walked alongside, carrying the remaining bags, and still processing his words. They rang like truth, so simple that it was hard to dispute. "You just need help." There was a liberating clarity to it. The car was waiting in the far corner of the parking lot, off the main stream. It was dark, unobtrusive, but with clear, confident lines, large and imposing. It seemed a part of him, just as calm and imposing. As they approached, Jong-ho pressed a button on his key fob. There was a soft click, and the headlights flickered in greeting. He walked around to the other side of the car, opened the back door, and began carefully placing the bags inside, careful not to crush or knock anything over. The groceries took up almost the entire back seat, transforming it into a lavish, edible interior. He then returned to Amelia, who stood there hesitantly, unsure of what to do. "Please get in," he said, opening the front passenger door. "It's more comfortable for a child to sit in the back if there's a seat." She nodded, automatically checking to make sure Leo was securely fastened in the carrier. Jong-ho waited until she had settled into the front seat, carefully placing his son in the back, strapped into his own car seat. which it turned out he had. Then he closed the door behind her with a soft, dull thud, a testament to the quality of the workmanship, and walked to the driver's seat. The door closed, and the world outside became distant and unimportant. A soft, muted silence filled the cabin, soundproofing. It smelled of leather, not an intrusive fragrance, but the clean, expensive scent of genuine leather seats and upholstery. The scent was warm, neutral, and calming. It evoked order, cleanliness, and control, things so far removed from her usual reality. Jung-ho started the engine. The sound was almost inaudible. Only a slight vibration underfoot indicated that the car was alive. He pulled away smoothly. "Address?" he asked, his voice a little deeper here in the confined space. Amelia quietly recited the street and house number. He nodded without turning on the GPS, simply turning in the right direction, as if he knew the area well. Maybe he did, or maybe he was just quick on his feet. They drove almost in silence. There was no music. The only sounds were the steady hum of the engine and the occasional street noise, as if coming from behind thick glass. Amelia looked out the window at the familiar streets passing by, but she saw them as if for the first time. Through the prism of today's events, everything seemed different, more vivid, more meaningful. She stole glances at him. His profile was focused, his hands resting on the steering wheel at 10 to 2. Relaxed but confident. He didn't try to fill the silence with idle chatter. This silence wasn't awkward. It was respite, a chance to collect the thoughts that still darted around inside her like frightened birds. Sometimes, looking at the darkening sky outside the window, or the reflection of the streetlights in the glass, she would quietly say, "Thank you." The word would slip out of her, unbeknownst to her, like an exhalation. She couldn't hold it back. It was too little for what he had done, but she had no other choice. At the first "thank you," he merely inclined his head. At the second, he simply nodded, never taking his eyes off the road. He didn't say, "You're welcome," or "it's nothing." He accepted her gratitude as fact, neither minimizing nor exaggerating its significance. It was honest as his help. Leo cooed softly behind him, watching the lights flashing past the window. Occasionally, he whined and Amelia, turning around, caught not an expression of irritation on Jung-ho's face in the rearview mirror, but just a brief, attentive crease between his brows. He made sure to drive as smoothly as possible. This was her home, her fortress, albeit a modest one. Jung-ho turned off the engine. Silence filled the cabin again, this time absolute. He got out first, walking around the car to open the door for her. Amelia, slightly taken aback by the gesture, quickly unbuckled herself and climbed out, immediately rushing to the back door to retrieve Leo. The baby was sleepy but calm. Then the unloading began. Jung-ho again took on the heaviest bags, full of canned goods and drinks. Amelia took the lighter ones, containing bread, fruit, and baby food. They walked silently down the short flagstone path to the front door. The porch light was out, and the only light came from the streetlights and his car's headlights, casting long, indistinct shadows. He placed the bags on the wooden step right by the door, stacking them carefully so nothing would fall. Amelia did the same. Now a small pyramid of plastic bags filled with food had grown between them, a visible, tangible reminder of the day's passing. He stepped back, clearing the way for her to the door. His task was complete. The groceries had been delivered. Amelia, holding the sleepy Leo in her arm, rummaged through her bag, trying to find her keys with one hand. Her heart began to beat faster again, but this time not from fear, but from a strange mixture of awkwardness and reluctance to let this evening end, as if it had been a simple courier delivery. "Please wait a second. I'll open it," and she hurried, finally feeling the cold metal of the keys deep in the bag. He stood with his hands in his coat pockets, and in the streetlight, his face seemed even more withdrawn and unreadable than it had been in the store. He didn't rush her, didn't check his watch. He simply waited, watching as she deftly and habitually inserted the key into the lock with one hand. With a click, the door gave way. The warm, familiar scent of home, old wood, clean linen, and the faintest hint of baby lotion wafted out into the chill night air. Amelia stepped back, holding the door open, and turned to face him. Tears glistened in her eyes again, but this time they were tears of deep, boundless gratitude, no longer filled with panic or disbelief. She stood on the threshold of her world, and he stood at the edge of her yard, and between them lay not just a path, but an entire chasm of life experience, momentarily bridged by one simple, inexplicable act. Amelia stood in the doorway, clutching a sleepy Leo to her. The warm light from the hallway picked out the man's figure, his dark coat, and his calm face. The pyramid of bags at her feet seemed like an unreal gift, a boundary between past despair and this strange, quiet present. A lump rose in her throat, and her eyes filled with tears again, but now they were tears of complete, unconditional relief. She looked at him, and the words flowed out, quiet but filled with such genuine power that even the night air seemed to hush to hear them. "I'll never forget this," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "You saved us today." She paused, breathing in the cool air, trying to compose herself. The words saved didn't seem like an exaggeration. That's how it was. He saved them from a hungry evening, from endless shame, from a feeling of utter helplessness. "Thank you so much," she continued, louder now, her gaze searching his for any reaction, confirmation that he understood the weight of her words. "Mr. She faltered, realizing she didn't even know his name. This incredible man who had transformed her day remained a nameless benefactor. Her voice held a silent question, an invitation to introduce herself, to make this story a little more personal, to anchor it in reality with a name. Jung-ho heard this interrupted question at the end of her thanks. He stood, head bowed slightly, listening to her words. They didn't fill him with embarrassment or pride. He accepted them as part of the ritual, the logical conclusion of the episode. When she stumbled over Mr. He merely shook his head slightly, making it clear the name was irrelevant. It wasn't part of the story. "You're welcome," he said, his voice soft but final in the quiet courtyard. He tried that same clumsy, almost mechanical attempt at a smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. It was a gesture of farewell, not joy. Then he looked straight at her, and his gaze became a little more focused, acquiring a touch of simple human interest that was devoid of sentimentality, but which therefore seemed even more sincere. "All the best," he wished, and these ordinary words from his lips sounded like a firm, almost fatherly admonition. He added, his gaze sliding over Leo's sleeping face, "Take care of yourself and your baby." That was all. No instructions, no questions about the future, no promises or hints of further help. Simply a wish for well-being and a call to care. Her most important and only work. There was finality in those words. He came, he saw, he helped, and he left, leaving behind no debts, no obligations, not even a name. His mission was accomplished. He nodded slightly in farewell, turned, and walked back to the car. His steps were as measured and confident as they had been in the store. He didn't look back. Amelia stood in the doorway, watching him climb into the car. The headlights flicker on smoothly, the dark silhouette pull away from the curb and disappear into the stream of nightlights. The car turned the corner and disappeared. Only then did Amelia catch her breath. She walked into the house, locked the door, and leaned her back against it, looking around the dark hallway, bathed in light from the kitchen. Bags lay at her feet, lots of them. She slowly knelt down next to them, still holding Leo, and reached into one. Her fingers touched the cool skin of a pomegranate, then the smooth packaging of a tea bag. She closed her eyes. She felt as if she'd entered a fairy tale. So quiet, so strange, without magical creatures or spells, but with the true miracle of a full refrigerator and a sense of security for tomorrow. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but she smiled, smiling in the darkness, hugging her son, and realizing that today's nightmare had ended with incredible light. Jung-ho drove through the night streets. The familiar silence reigned in the car, broken only by the rustle of the tires on the asphalt. He glanced in the rearview mirror. A familiar face was reflected in it, calm, impenetrable, with a slight weariness around the eyes. No smile, no warmth. That brief episode at the supermarket and at the stranger's house seemed cut out of his ordinary day and placed in a separate, isolated memory slot. He was returning to his own world, a world of quiet negotiations, complex schemes, responsibility, and power. A world where every step is calculated, every word carries weight, and kindness without reason is considered weakness or a mistake. But today, somewhere on the very periphery of this world, something happened that defied its laws. A small, private, unknown event. He turned onto the wide avenue leading to the city's business center, the lights of the skyscrapers reflected in the windshield. His face, in their glare, was stony and focused. But today, in this strictly ordered world of Kim Jun-ho, one simple, gratuitous act of kindness became more. It didn't change it. It didn't soften it. But it happened. And that was enough. For her, and perhaps even unnoticed by himself, for some small, long-forgotten part of his soul that still remembered that sometimes helping isn't a transaction, but simply an act that restores balance to the world. He increased the speed, and the dark car dissolved into the night traffic, taking his familiar mask with it and leaving at the modest threshold a quiet, healing gratitude that would warm one small house for a very long time.